Migrating your business from an on-premise server to Microsoft 365. So firstly, what is a cloud migration? Currently, all of your data is stored on your server locally within your building somewhere. What we essentially need to do is take everything off of that server and move it into the Microsoft 365 environment. But it's not as simple as just clicking a button and moving the whole lot up. The reason is that the structure is completely different. An example might be if you're going to move house, but you're moving from, let's say, a house to an apartment, you will have so many different things that are no longer needed. If you've got a house with a garden and suddenly you're moving to a high-rise apartment, then you're not going to need anything for doing the garden with. Also, you may need to downsize. This is exactly the same thing you need to think about when moving to the cloud, because more often than not, it's going to cost you more money the more data that you've got when you're in the cloud. The big difference that you have to remember is currently, if you've got a server, it's your server. You can do whatever you want with it, you can use it as much as you like, and the only thing it's going to cost you really is the electric. If you do expand the number of users, then yes, there's extra licensing costs. But other than that, you can do whatever you want with it. When you're looking at moving to the cloud, whether it's Microsoft 365 or any other provider, they're going to charge you for additional data storage and more processing power. So the more you do with it, the more it will cost every day that you use it. So you need to make sure that you know exactly what you're going to move. So very often people think that it's cheaper and easier to be in the cloud. And depending on your environment, that might be correct. However, you need to understand what data and software you're currently using. If you've got programs and databases that are installed on the server, will they work in the cloud environment? And also, how many resources will you need to actually run it? If you're just talking files and folders, emails, calendars, then actually that's relatively easy to move. When we say easy, it's whether you're already on Microsoft 365, if you've got that tenant set up, but also looking at your security. Are all your users already set up in the correct security profile? Because if you're just using them for emails, they may not be. So it's not as easy just to literally move the data from one place to another. Also, if you've currently got a domain that is controlled by the server, you're going to need to take those computers off of the on-prem domain and put them into the Microsoft Azure domain. So this means reprofiling all of the devices that you've got. So it really does depend on what you're currently using and then what environment you're going to move to and what features and settings you want. So it really is a case of breaking down exactly what elements you want from the on-premise going into the Microsoft 365 cloud. Often people are going to move because they may have a current database that's on their server and that provider is now offering a hosted version. So then if everything that they do on a day-to-day basis within that database is now going to be hosted, it's then looking at what data you've got left and then creating the environment to fit your network. The other thing when it comes to migrating is often you've got more data than you can just click a button and it instantly goes from one to the other. So it's all around planning the migration. First of all, we would build the environment and then sync the data so that it's in multiple places. But then you need to plan a cutoff where effectively you would stop using the old and then start using the new. But of course you would need to be reprofiling all of the devices in the meantime. So it's not as simple as just switching from one to the other, and it does take a lot of planning. So if you're not sure of how to start approaching moving from an on-premise server into the Microsoft cloud, then Syn-Star can help. So please click on the link below and we'd love to discuss how Syn-Star can look at seamlessly migrating you from an on-premise server to the Microsoft 365 environment.